There we go. It was actually unfortunately muted. The chairman did call it. My apologies for that, and the pledge was read.
Okay. Hi, Noreen. Could you do roll call, please?
Chairman Payne,
Here.
Commissioner Claffey,
Here.
Commissioner Haggerty,
Here.
Commissioner Havens,
Here.
Commissioner Linares,
Here.
Commissioner Trister,
Here.
Commissioner Woods,
Here.
Commissioner Droz, Commissioner Fox, Commissioner Pascarelli.
Okay. Very good. We have a quorum. We will go to public participation next. I'm going to assume that there's no change in the agenda.
No changes.
Paul? Very good. Public participation, if somebody's on Zoom, please raise your hand if you'd like to participate, or if there's anybody here in the room like to participate.
No hands are raised on Zoom.
Okay, seeing that we're all set, if there's no objections, we're going to go to the next thing on the agenda, which is the zoning enforcement officer's report. Eric's put together one and has given it to us. Is there any questions for staff? No questions? Do you have anything, Paul?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Very good. Any remarks by commissioners? We have no public hearing tonight. The next thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from July 26th, 2023. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Commissioner Havens. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Trista. Any discussion, corrections? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We have no new business tonight. The next thing on the list is petition on old business, petition 1223. Commissioner Woods, would you read that for me, please?
Yeah, petition 12-23 site plan modification to improve building access at 1042 Main Street. Applicant owner contact Peter Vornazzo. Forgot the R.
We will go right to a staff report on this.
Yep.
Thank
So to report to the commission, the town council last night filed a certificate of action for the referral on file and approved the easement. They have approved that Tom Hutka, town manager, will work with the town attorney to draft the easement and that he's authorized to execute any documents. That was the primary item that was waiting on the last agenda. As a reminder to the commission, again, the application is for facade improvements to the rear of the building, new storefront windows, a new door, and as it's noted, the patio and ramp. So staff actually recommends approval of this application and has provided a draft motion.
Very good. Any questions for staff? I'll entertain a motion.
We have one? Petition 12-23 site plan modification to improve building access at 1042 Main Street. Applicant owner contact Peter Vornazzo. Motion to approve with conditions. Move to approve the site plan modification to renovate the rear facade and install a concrete patio and ramp at 1042 Main Street. Conditions: 1, prior to the signature of Mylars, the owner must obtain the required easement to install the ramp and stairs and update the plan to specify the recorded document. 2, the applicant must submit details for approval of the proposed signage on the awning prior to building permit approval. Reason for approval, the building renovations will enhance the underutilized portion of the rear building that abuts the municipal parking lot in the B-TC zone.
Excuse me, Dominic,
Yes,
Chairman Payne.
yes. Yes, Noreen?
No, she must not be able to hear us.
Chairman Payne.
Yes, Noreen?
Can you hear us, Noreen? Let me, okay, I'm muted and unmuted. Can you hear us, Noreen? From to Commissioner Claffey, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. It looks like on the screen that Noreen's not on video anymore. It's not red.
Oh, yeah,
She's in there. Noreen, can you hear us?
Chairman Payne.
Yes.
It doesn't show as muted, so there might be connection difficulties.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. I think I need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Havens. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
It's just making noise.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. Good luck. I think it's a nice positive thing for the center of Newington.
Thank you.
Okay, the next thing is the petitions for public hearing scheduling. I'm not sure if Eric would like to go over anything. I'm sorry, Paul would like to go over anything on that.
Nope, these are all pretty
Okay.
straightforward. We went over a couple last time. And again, there's a accessory apartment one that has been added.
Okay, the, next thing on the agenda is the town planner's report on, go right ahead.
Okay, so the current land use applications are, of course, located on the webpage. To give everyone kind of an update on current projects. One, just to kind of show, this was presented at the town council last night. The fire department has added detail to their sign that adds, again, that architectural element, an architectural element from the town standards to kind of tie it in a little more. So that's just for your information. We're working with them.
Actually, it matches what's over their door, so it looks good.
From moving forward, just an update on 227 Payne Road. You can see significant progress has been made at the framing of the building. You know, its front building is up and being closed in. And then you can see from the rear of the site, this is taken again at the back. You can see parking lot is created and that the rest of the buildings are progressing as well too. So there's good progress on that site. 93 Payne Road. Just to let you know that this is the swim school. The site has been leveled, drainage structures are in, and the foundation has been poured. So they are continuing forward. And 3333 Berlin Turnpike. The last time I showed the picture of the grocery store, it was kind of wide open in a concrete shell. You can see they're making progress, closing it in. They have the entrances identified and moving forward. So they're making progress on the shell. This was another building the last time I showed that was kind of just a shell. This is when you're coming down the driveway, first building on the right from the Berlin Turnpike. You can see it's, you know, well progressed on the outside of the building. And again, we expect people to be moving forward in the near future with fit out permits for this building. This is the one that's next to that, kind of down from it slightly. You can see it's kind of finished off. They were working on this the last time I was out there. This has a slightly different detail in the area around this entrance, which is nice to have a little variation. They have the wood along most of them, but this area has a little bit of a different entrance. And to give you an update, so this is the first building they were constructing, sided, being finished. So good progress is being made there. Directly across from it, the second building, this was just a foundation the last time it was shown. So you can see they're making significant progress. And this is the foundation, and you can see some of the garages being constructed, and this is for the third residential building towards the rear of the site. So again, they have the foundation, they're working on that, working on the garages and continuing on progress. So all buildings have either, are under construction now. Update on 550 Cedar. We kind of see it while driving by, but you can notice that the base pavement is down in a lot of areas, and the drainage is in, site lighting is in. So they're moving forward on this project. It was noted that, they were trying for, late fall towards the end of this year to kind of get occupancy going at the building. They're making good progress on the buildings. They have the entrances constructed and, working on throughout. So that's the back building. And this is the building to the right of that, parallel with the property line between that and the neighbor. The third building has not gone under construction yet, but as you can see, these two, they're made good progress. So that's just a kind of an update on current projects. The next part of the report is to kind of go through, it was asked at the last meeting or 2 meetings ago, when drive-through were brought up for staff to take a look into what we could see for regulations, and also to look at what regulations we currently have and come up with some potential suggestions. So what I did is I did research. I didn't find anything as specific to our business town center that had drive-through regulations, so I looked beyond it. One thing to note, drive-throughs are, in the media kind of back and forth, but one items that I did find in Connecticut, there have been towns, Middletown in 2003, and these are in areas that are a little bit more like our Berlin Turnpike or some of our other commercial areas, where they allowed drive-throughs. Brookfield has updated their regulations to allow it, Killingworth, and also West Hartford in the BG zone in 2021, in that area around Main Street. Again, that second general business area, not Blueback Square, but the general business area that has the Trader Joe's and everything, or Whole Foods actually up there, that allowed drive-throughs as well. So that was in 2021. So there has been mixed media on it, but there has been some recent precedent in Connecticut where people have been looking at drive-throughs. So what I did, looking beyond our local area, is to look for a publication. I found the publication that I included, the zoning practice, which I thought kind of went through thoughtfully about drive-throughs, the history of it, all the different components and ways to kind of address concerns, walkability, stacking, all those different items. So I'm going to kind of, go through it just briefly if I can. So one item that was kind of suggested is to have a purpose in front of it. This is not typical in the regulations to have it in front of every section to have a purpose. It's something to consider. Again, the purpose is just to provide that guidance of what the reason of these regulations for. Typically, of course, reduce noise, lighting, visual impacts, promote safer and more efficient vehicular traffic and pedestrian circulation, and to reduce conflicts between queued vehicle and traffic. So one item or one zoning regulation that the article pointed out was actually in Standish, Maine, which I found interesting. This is kind of in their form-based village district, which typically do not permit drive-throughs, but they actually have a drive-through regulation in their form-based, where they cite the drive-through windows located behind and screened by the building, minimize impacts on pedestrian activity, and then stacking of cars not permitted in access driveways. And they provided the graphic you see on your screen to kind of show how they put in their zoning regulations, how they were looking for drive-throughs within their kind of design district. So again, main components of it are building design. So this is actually already accomplished in the Business Town Center Overlay District. There are design requirements that would be required, and all the buildings should be thoughtfully designed down there. That is already in the regulations. So building design is covered. Access, there's a lot of considerations of access that they talked about. widths, lane widths, again, not obstructing vehicular traffic, to and from required parking. A lot of these items are actually part of review when a traffic report comes in, and we do have traffic report requirements. And again, stacking, these are all taken right from it. The main item, the takeaway from it is stacking, and actually the way our regulations are in the Business Berlin Turnpike, part of the traffic report that they have to submit as part of an application has in it that they have to do an analysis of stacking and analysis of the amount of cars. So that was the biggest takeaway from this part, is that no two drive-throughs are exactly the same. Every independent use that uses it is going to have a different volume, and they need to be looked at for the volume of that specific use. And that's through the traffic report and through the application and through the commission's review. Even noted that, looking at the time of operation for how long it takes to place an order, for how long it takes to get the order, should actually impact of where the ordering window to where your pickup window is. So again, it's very site specific for the use. Noise is a consideration. Modern technology has made it a little better. We don't have the loudspeakers of the old days that just kind of blasted things out there, crackling. They did recommend either, sometimes there are setbacks, sometimes there are decibel levels. That's something that the commission can consider. Lighting is not a specific issue. However, lighting is a general issue. This might be something that we look at in the future. I haven't heard too many lighting complaints here in Newington, so that's been good so far. And again, walk-up service is another thing that's talked about and maybe encouraged in areas that are walkable in the town center. Why that might not be in this regulation itself might be something for the commission to consider. They might have already, be considered as accessory anyway, but it might be something that's encouraged, again, as people walk through the town center, having the ability to walk up to a window, grab something there. It's basically a drive-through for people. Rebuilding or replacement, there was a discussion in the article about, so when that drive-through is changed over or enlarged, a new use comes in, special permits tend to, they stick with the land, so approved just as a drive-through. If that volume changes, the commission may actually have a mechanism in there to say, if you're increasing the size of the building, you have to review the traffic and make sure that how that site is designed is capable to support that new use. So that's another item that was raised. And again, submission requirements, it talks about litter cleanup plans. That's something that I have actually done in the past in other regulations. And again, the traffic study is already in the BTT special permit uses, but it might be good to have one more specific and strengthened specifically about drive-through restaurants. So that's kind of going through that article. Those are the key points to look through. Again, those were in the packet. So the article is there for anyone to read. These are the current Berlin Turnpike requirements. Again, it talks about the traffic impact analysis, the driveway location spaced at least 150 feet from a corner intersection. Again, that's a fast road, considerations for that. And also drive-through windows located only on one side, minimize conflicts between doorways and pedestrians. And again, the service menu shall be located not less than 300 feet from adjacent residential structures. So that is in the Berlin Turnpike zone. In the PD zone, there is no requirement for that 300 feet. So in response to the commission's discussion at the last meeting, I've kind of taken some of the items that we've already had and taken items from that zoning practice and looked at some options for drive-through requirements. Also, and other regulations, including West Hartford's had it specifically that drive-through restaurant shall be located on lots having a frontage on arterial roadways. Not to permit them within the interior of the town center on Lowry or anything like that. The applicant shall submit a traffic impact analysis. This is a more specific one to drive-throughs. Again, ADT, volume of customers, stacking length needed for the anticipated volumes, turning movements, capacity, and level of service. This is an item to consider. Again, this is kind of looking at the Standish option too. The siting of drive-through windows must be located behind and screened by the principal building and must be positioned to minimize conflicts with doorways and pedestrians. In the event of redevelopment of a site with an existing drive-through, the commission may allow for an existing drive-through window to be utilized in its current location with the provision of adequate landscape screening with a minimum height of 3 feet. Again, that's kind of taken from that zoning practice. So it's an item for the commission to consider. Again, drive-through restaurants must include indoor service. There is a movement in the drive-through industry. Again, this is more of a Berlin Turnpike, high traffic, high volume consideration, but drive-through restaurants are moving to drive-through only. Dunkin', Taco Bell, a lot of them are looking at it. Again, with the town center, from staff's point, it might be appropriate, again, to have that both, if we do permit drive-throughs for that, but also to allow it so pedestrians and residents there can also enjoy the same restaurant. And again, that it's not just an auto-dependent use. Again, the entrance and egress location, I left it at 100 feet, kind of different. It's a different area than Turnpike. The commission consider whether they want that in there or not. Again, from a corner intersection. And again, I think it's important, the commission may limit the number of driveways of adjacent properties and or inter-property driveway connections when the reduction of curb cut is deemed to improve safety. When you improve safety, it's both vehicular and pedestrian in the areas. The less curb cuts, the safer it is, generally for traversing those. Again, whether there's a consideration for the order income to be located not less than X feet from any residential structure, that's amount to be discussed, or whether we want to consider a decibel limit, kind of as a noted, that's an item I can look into further if the commission would like included. And again, H is that item that's taken from there. In the event that the gross floor area, should say of area for the drive-through restaurant is expanded by 25% or more, the applicant shall submit an application for modification to the special exception, which must include a traffic impact analysis report for requirement A. I should say of this section. Again, this is kind of a draft. So these are for your consideration based upon our discussion last time. So I would like to hear from the commission your thoughts.
Commission members?
I like the, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the idea of the walk-up window, the pedestrian-friendly window. I think that's a great idea, because then they definitely discourage it, right? If you are trying to walk up to a drive-through window, they don't want any part of you. So, and especially being in a town center, I think that's a good thing to promote. So I like that. I think we need to be real careful with our setbacks if we do allow this in our downtown center, just because we've got this mix of residential property everywhere. So, there's in this particular piece, there's apartments right there. I don't know, to be honest with you, the houses there, if they're zoned residentially or if they're technically commercial buildings now. But our main drag there on Main Street, and right next to the Flores business, there's people that live there. There's apartments on the backside. Those used to be houses, and there's still the makes of some of those behind that kind of got turned into storefronts. So I want to make sure we don't box ourselves into this corner for that. But in the decibel thing, I'd be the first one to agree with you. It used to be like horrendous. I don't use drive-through windows. I hate them. Particularly because I like my coffee a certain way and I actually want to see them do it. Don't want to get the wrong one, but they're used a lot. But it's, it's peak hours, right? So it's from 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning to maybe 10. And then it trickles down. So let's say there's 25 cars or 15 cars in line. It goes down to 1 or 2, right? And then it maybe picks up a little bit at lunchtime and then maybe again in mid-afternoon, but it's a short span, although they do a lot of business, specifically Dunkin' Donuts. But it's interesting to me that the building that we're talking about that kind of brought this all up, it was originally built as a dry cleaners, and the commission allowed a drive-through. Now, granted, I would think a drive-through for a dry cleaner, probably the volume is way less than a restaurant. And especially today, I mean, drive-throughs weren't that common, and now, that's where probably 70 to 85% of business is done on a drive-through. But I think it's something we really need to look into. And try to, maybe we do it, by special exception. That way there, because there are gonna be some areas, yeah, that where it could be tied up against a residential property, and, if someone lived in an apartment or a home there, they're not, I don't blame them for not wanting that speaker going or the cars going. But I don't have a problem with it by special exception. I think it's something that we should look into. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Commissioner Woods.
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Claffey has raised his hand online.
Go right ahead, Commissioner Clappy.
Thank you. The only question I had on it is how it correlates because of the two-way speakers with our banks locally in the downtown area that either abut or the perimeter of these properties, like say Liberty Bank, Webster Bank that abuts some apartments, Liberty Bank, I think abuts some residential property. How do those regulations correlate with your proposed, as we look into this? Because, you go up to the pharmacy and you talk right at the window, like at CVS or the old Walgreens. But at some of these banks, like the one by the post office, it's way set back. It's a two-way speaker between the two. So are there correlations with that? With, you had spoken about decibel levels, signage. I know the signage is the menu board is a separate issue. But is there any correlation between the two? We look at that, how our bank ones, because multiple lanes, et cetera. Just a thought.
Yes, and thank you for that. And I can look into that. Each one of those was approved under a different special exception, under a different, different amount of times. I haven't seen anything specific about decibels when it comes to those those intercoms. Restaurants are a little different. The hours are a little different. Bankers' hours are typically, very limited.
No, I understand, but there's definitely some queuing. I've seen a lot longer queue times at the CVS in downtown. I know it's a separate style of drive-through, but there's times you can't even pull into that parking lot because of it. It doesn't happen all the time. It's varied times. I think the banks are fine. Mine was more of, the different styles of drive-through. I think the bank would be the closest one that matches because there's a two-way speaker and there's some that abut some residential. So I just want to make sure that we're thinking about those two and not just restaurant focused based on noise, et cetera, et cetera. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other commissioners have anything? Oh, yes.
A question for the planner. Actually, before that, I think it's a good idea. It's certainly more volume than a bank would be, a potential Dunkin' Donuts, but it's certainly not the volume of a fast food restaurant. I would be very concerned about. I think that's a good location for a potential Dunkin' Donuts, right off of Cedar Street there. And on the other side, I think if McDonald's wanted to come in and buy the Bank of America, I think that would be a terrible idea. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mr. So I think you had said a couple meetings ago that if we were to go down this road and let this happen by special exception, we still might even have trouble saying no to someone like McDonald's wanting to go into the Bank of America. Is that true, or can you comment on that?
So the main way I would look at that is, of course, when we look at special exception is a use that's allowed. However, under these specific criteria, which, again, other than a site plan, which is looking at the four corners, if they meet the requirements within, more administrative, special exception looks at the impact beyond. So I think that's the importance in the criteria, that if the commission chooses to go that way, that those criteria should be able to be looked at. And that's the importance, is the traffic study. What's going to be the amount of queuing? What's going to be the amount of impact? But again, when looking at a special exception, that yes, if a special exception is granted and, is permitted in that zone, it gives those owners, the property owners, the opportunity to apply for it. It's just that, will they meet those criteria? So that's the importance of the criteria.
Thank you.
Any other, yes, Commissioner Woods?
Pick it up on what Counselor Claffey said. Actually, they brought up a good point with the pharmacies. Although I don't know that I would waste too much time with the banks, because I think the drive-in tellers, 3 to 5 years tops, they're no longer going to exist. Most banks are doing away from them now. There's still going to be a drive up, but it's an ATM. You know, so if you're talking to yourself, which we all do at times. I get that, but I mean, all the banks are moving away from that model. And actually, Bank of America is a perfect example. While there is, you know, it looks like drive-up tellers, it's just an ATM machine in there. That's all it is.
Actually, add to that, most of them that I've seen, a lot of the banks are also moving towards the virtual teller, where they have someone sitting in some building somewhere, and they can service multiple ones where actually someone pops up on the screen and you can do the banking through there and talk with them. You know, that was one of the credit unions that I previously worked with did that, and they moved a lot of it over to it. And, you know, there was some consternation from some of the people who were going there for years. It's a different type of way, but I can see it moving towards that. So what I'm hearing kind of is a consideration to look at this is potentially, and this is for discussion, as just drive-through regulations in the area. And that way, you know, if we kind of look at restaurants and have something more specific to them, but if we're just looking at drive-throughs and applying them equally, the main part comes down to what is the volume? What is the business that's going to be there? And that's why, you know, why it's a little unusual in regulations. I haven't seen it that often, but again, it's proposed that when someone increases the floor area and changes it, that's when it should get re-reviewed, because it could be a drastically different type of user going into there.
We don't allow any drive-through windows, correct? By right, it's all by special exception.
Correct, and this would be proposed by special exception as well, because each lot is going to be very different.
If I remember, it was pretty controversial when CVS came in, again, 20, 25 years ago now, but that, you know, raised a stir. And but again, Councilor Claffey, I think it makes an excellent point. The, you know, face-to-face at a pharmacy, that's not going to go away.
And what I'd like to put out, so the arterial, what I have on here is the DOT functional classifications of roads that I have up there. So the arterial roads are East Cedar and Main. You can see them in the green there. Everything that is in yellow here would not be eligible. I think this is kind of the zone we're talking about again in the deep purple, just to put up the business town center zone. Again, that darker purple color is the land we're talking about.
And I think the screening aspect that you have incorporated in there is important. Not only will it screen the site of things, it'll also possibly prevent the noise from traveling too. So I think that's a good aspect to have in the regulation. Any other comments for the staff? All right.
So I'd ask from here is my direction just to kind of draft the regulation, propose it kind of with these taking in those considerations. Is this something the commission would like me just to submit, or is this something the commission would like to see another time in its final draft?
Go ahead, Commissioner Woods.
Well, yeah, I'd like to see a draft, a draft of it. Because I'd also like to see a map like this, because what I think we do need to maybe limit and have a setback for residential, but I want to see how it impacts, you know, the area that we're talking about before. And I think the commission should really see it to make sure that we don't box ourselves into a corner.
Good point.
Anything else? Paul, you have you're all
My
set?
direction, I will, in 2 weeks from now, have that draft available for the TPZ.
Thank you. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Next thing on the agenda is communications. We have CROG letters. Is there any questions for staff concerning any of the CROG letters? Hearing nothing. Next thing on the agenda is public participation. If anybody's on Zoom, to raise your hand. If you'd like to participate, please dial *9. Or if there's anybody here.
I have one on Zoom has raised their hand, so I'm going to click allow to talk.
Okay.
Hi, Rose Lyons, 46 Elton Drive. I tuned in a little bit late at the beginning of the meeting. I have to say that the Zoom meeting is faster than the NCTV video, so I just had an observation after listening to the town council meeting last night and the discussion about the sign at the fire department. And I know that the town is exempt from the TPZ regulations, but also I believe that there is an administrative letter in 35. I think Paul may have mentioned it last night. I'm not sure because I was in and out of the meeting. So I had some other things going on here, but I don't believe that the TPZ would have anything to do with the standards for the town-owned facilities, but it would come from the town manager's office. But I'm hoping that there's some type of input from our town planner if that administrative letter is reviewed. I think it goes back to 2004, that perhaps there can be more uniformity in the center of town. I know that when the Parks and Rec sign on the town green was taken down, it did not conform with this letter, but then again, it was not designating anything other than showing what was coming up and allowing people to advertise upcoming events and things like that. And there has been talk in the past of signs on the other side of the Berlin Turnpike as well, and I forget whether it was the Joint Committee on Community Safety or some other commission that was established. I think that there should be some sort of uniformity with all the town buildings. I noticed even with the town hall, I don't even think there's any signs going in there as yet, other than sandwich board signs. But in any case, it was just something that I've been looking at for a while and just thought about it, and I just wanted to give a little input on that. And some of the other things, I was in the municipal parking lot area the other day, and I know that the Parks and Rec Department has been given oversight of that area. And I mentioned it town council, and I'm going to mention it to you only because we spent $1.8 million on that municipal parking lot. We took property by eminent domain to make a focal point, and that focal point now is being used as an area for concerts and things like that, which is great. I think that's nice for the community. But having the picnic tables all around there, even not just during the summer, but in the winter too, I don't think it's something that should be done. I don't know whether you have any control over it or not. Maybe it's something I should bring up at Parks and Rec. But in any case, I just thought I would say what I had to say so that I don't have to go on Facebook and say it, and so it's on the record. And I thank you for your time, and I'll let you get back to your meeting so you can call it a day or a night. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak that's online?
No one else wishing to speak?
All right, we're going to move over to remarks by commissioners. I want to thank everybody. I think we had a very good meeting, and thank NCTV, and entertain a motion to adjourn. So motion made, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Very good. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
Dominic, Dominic.
What?